The only thing keeping me going is seeing H on Wednesday. Hopefully he'll see me and we'll get married." These were the excited words of 20-year-old Keeley Bunker, posted just days before attending what would be her final concert. Like many young women her age, she was full of dreams, hope, and trust in those around her. But in less than 24 hours after this carefree moment, Keeley would be dead. The person responsible wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. It wasn't someone who had stalked her from afar. It was someone who had been in her life since they were children. Someone she thought she could trust. Someone who was supposed to keep her safe that night. This is the story of how a childhood friendship ended in the ultimate betrayal. This is the case of Keeley Bunker. Every parent's vision of their child is unique, colored by years of watching them grow, seeing their personality bloom, and witnessing their dreams take shape. For Debbie Bunker, her daughter Keeley was the kindest, most caring, innocent young lady you could ever meet. Born on September 7th, 1999, in the quiet town of Tamworth, England, Keeley had grown into a vibrant young woman with a clear vision for her future. At 20 years old, she was pursuing her dream of working with children. She had already secured an interview for a teaching assistant position, an interview scheduled for September 19th, 2019, but she would never make it to that interview. The night before, on September 18th, Keeley was celebrating. She had just turned 20 a few days earlier, and life seemed full of promise. That evening, she was going to see her favorite musician perform at the O2 Academy in Birmingham. Accompanying her was her close friend Monique Riggin. The two had planned this night for weeks, and their excitement was palpable. But they weren't going to be alone. Wesley Street, a friend since childhood, would be joining them. Wesley had been a constant presence in Keeley's life for over a decade. The same classrooms, the same friend group, the same local haunts. Their friendship was something everyone around them understood and trusted, including Keeley. What we're about to show you is the last night of Keeley Bunker's life, captured through security cameras, witness statements, and police footage. It's a story about trust, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of assuming we truly know someone. But first, we need to understand what happened in those crucial hours at the nightclub called Snobs, where Keeley was last seen alive and smiling. Inside Birmingham's Snobs nightclub, security cameras captured what should have been just another night of celebration. It was now 11:30 p.m., and Keeley, Monique, and Wesley had just arrived from the concert. They were laughing, their bodies still moving to the rhythm of the music they'd just experienced. Wesley would later tell police he was 3 times more drunk than the girls that night. But the cameras tell a different story. At 2:15 a.m., we see Keeley dancing with her friends, her face lit up with joy. This would be one of the last happy moments captured of her life. By 2:40 a.m., the night was winding down. The 3 friends called a taxi to take them back to Tamworth. What happened next was captured in fragments, through CCTV, witness statements, and later police interviews. The taxi arrived at Monique's house at approximately 4 a.m. Standing outside in the early morning darkness, Monique made an offer that, in hindsight, would haunt her forever. "Stay the night," she told Keeley. "It's late." But Keeley had that important interview later that day. She wanted to sleep in her own bed. It was just a 20-minute walk home. "I've got Wes," Keeley said, gesturing to her childhood friend. "Wes will walk me back. It'll be fine." Those words would prove to be tragically misplaced trust. As Monique watched her friends disappear into the darkness, everything seemed normal. Wesley had known Keeley since they were children. He lived near her. He was supposed to be safe. But in the next few hours, something would change. Something would make Wesley Street transform from trusted friend to something else entirely. 2 p.m., September 19th, 2019. The chair at Keeley's teaching assistant interview sat empty. For those who knew her, this was completely out of character. Calls went straight to voicemail. Text messages remained unread. A young woman who was usually quick to respond had suddenly gone silent. By 5:30 p.m., Christopher Bunker had done what no parent ever wants to do. He reported his daughter missing. The police's first step was obvious: talk to the last person who saw her alive. When first questioned, Wesley confidently told the officers that he had left Keeley at a phone box near his house. According to him, she was perfectly fine when they parted ways. The officers, already suspicious, asked Wesley to accompany them in retracing his steps from that night. As they drove through the streets of Tamworth, Wesley maintained his story, pointing out the phone box where he claimed to have last seen Keeley. But it was a simple request that would crack his composed facade. When officers asked to examine his phone, Wesley's demeanor changed dramatically. Gone was the helpful, cooperative friend. Instead, he became defensive and agitated, refusing to hand over his device. "No one's blaming you," the officer can be heard saying in the footage, but Wesley's mounting anxiety was telling its own story. His repeated insistence that he was being blamed, despite officers' reassurances, would soon prove to be more revealing than he intended. While Wesley was with the police, Keeley's family hadn't waited for official search parties to begin. They were already combing through Tamworth. As darkness began to fall, the search led them to Wigginton Park. What happened next would send shockwaves through the entire community. At precisely 9 p.m., a scream pierced the evening air. It was Keeley's uncle, Jason Brown. He had found something by the pond, something partially hidden under branches. While Jason was making this horrifying discovery, Wesley was still in police custody, still maintaining his innocence. But the GPS data from the phone he didn't want to hand over was about to tell a very different story. What Jason Brown discovered in Wigginton Park that evening would haunt him forever. Searching with his flashlight in the growing darkness, he caught a glimpse of something that shouldn't have been there, a glint of metal from a bracelet, then strands of hair floating in the water. The scream that followed was described by witnesses as blood-curdling, the kind of scream that comes from a place of pure anguish. Within minutes, the park was swarming with police. What they found confirmed their worst fears. Keeley's body had been callously discarded in the pond, partially concealed by branches. Her clothing had been disturbed, and marks on her neck told a horrifying story of her final moments. At this exact moment, Wesley Street was still with the officers, still maintaining his phone box story. But now, everything was about to change. Officers arrested Wesley Street and brought him to the interrogation room. In the interview room, Wesley's story began to unravel. First, he claimed he was too drunk to remember anything clearly. Wesley: "I was drunk by 11 p.m., but the nightclub footage showed otherwise." When presented with evidence, his story changed again and again, each version more contradictory than the last. But technology doesn't lie. The GPS data from the phone he had refused to hand over revealed something chilling. Not only had Wesley never left Keeley at any phone box, he had returned to the park 7 times that day. 7 times to the scene of his crime. As investigators pieced together the evidence, the full horror of what happened that night began to emerge. Wesley's jacket, found discarded in the park, his bank card nearby, but most damning of all, his DNA. Confronted with this evidence, Wesley's story changed one final time. Now he claimed Keeley's death was accidental, occurring during what he alleged was consensual intimacy. But the evidence told a different story, a story of premeditation, a story of betrayal. The GPS data revealed that Wesley had deliberately led Keeley away from her route home, toward the secluded park, away from safety, away from witnesses, Detective Inspector Cheryl Hannon. But as the trial progressed, something even more disturbing came to light. 3 women came forward, each with their own story about Wesley Street, each eerily similar. 2015, a 16-year-old girl. 2017, a 15-year-old girl. 2019, just months before Keeley's murder, a 20-year-old woman. Lead prosecutor Hannah Sway said, "This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment attack. It was a pattern of behavior over a significant period." The man who had played the role of trusted friend had been hiding a dark secret all along. Wesley Street was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 29 years and 46 days. The judge's words were clear: "You may never be released." But for Keeley's family, no sentence could ever be enough. Keeley Bunker was just 20 years old when her life was taken. A young woman with dreams of teaching, of making a difference in children's lives. Her best friend of 16 years, Gabriel Summerfield, wrote, "You were stunning, had a heart of pure gold, and no one could ever come close. You were my only best friend I've ever had. You had so much more to give." For Keeley's mother, Debbie Bunker, the pain remains unbearable. In her victim impact statement, she said, "Keeley was the kindest, most caring, innocent young lady you could ever meet. She was just starting out in her life. Such is the hell we feel. We are incapable of showing any forgiveness." The tragic irony of this case lies in Keeley's final words to her friend Monique. "I've got Wes. It'll be fine." Words that remind us that trust, once broken, can never truly be repaired. In memory of Keeley Bunker and all victims of betrayed trust,